Welcome to Safe Coalition, Confronting Our Crisis. I'm Ann Bergen, co-host of this series of programs, along with Jim Derrick, who created this series of programs, and he is the guiding spirit behind the Safe Coalition, which is really mostly grassroots collaboration, and it's grown, and it's such a powerful gift to our community. The mission of the Safe Coalition is to provide support for individuals and families who are struggling with the disease of substance use disorder, providing treatment options, discussions about prevention, education, but most importantly, erasing the stigma that's associated with this disease. We have been so grateful for the courageous people who have come on this program to share their stories, those who have been impacted in one way or another from this awful disease in often gut-wrenching ways. And then they manage to transform their pain and grief into action in order to spare others. And our guests today are here to share their story. And it's helping all of us understand the consequences of substance use and misuse. And that's why I'm going to turn it over to Jimmy, because I want you to introduce our guests, because you've had a chance to get to know them and talk with them. And it's a wonderful story, powerful story about spirit and all of those things. So I'll turn it over to you. It sure is,
Ann. A wonderful opening, and it captures the spirit of the Brodeur family very, very well. I met Lisa.Brodeur at the MIAA conference, where she had a table with her book out, and I have to recommend this book, A Mother's Journey Through Faith, Hope, and Courage. And I would encourage anybody to go out and get this book, and I'm sure when we're done with this interview, you're going to want to do just that. So I met Lisa, I heard her story, I could not wait to bring her on the program, and the bonus was she brought along Kyle.Brodeur, who's here with us today, and I thank you both for coming out.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah. Lisa's story is, and the Brodeur family story is remarkable. They've chosen to use their story as a means of education and prevention. And it's the real life story of what happens to a family that is victimized by the crime of impaired driving, drunk driving, drug driving. And Lisa's and her family's story is harrowing, it's tragic, but it's also a story of courage, resilience, and hope. And again, that's what we're going to dive in today. So Lisa, take us up in the early years. You were married to your husband, Mike, and living in the, I want to say the Southbridge.
Yep.
Right.
We grew up in Southbridge, and we were married in Southbridge, and that's where we lived.
And you have two beautiful girls as a result of your and Mike's marriage, and you had Kyle when you and Mike met.
Yes, and Mike adopted Kyle.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah, when Kyle was 9 years old. It was it went through right before our crash happened.
Right. And there's a great scene in the book of Kyle being frustrated. Kyle, you were frustrated that you didn't share the same last name as your sisters and your dad and your mom, and so there was a bit of a difficult process where you were trying to get your name changed, and your dad looked at you and said, "He's my son anyway. He's adopted."
He was so worried that something would happen to me that he wouldn't have rights to Kyle.
Right.
So he really wanted to adopt Kyle anyway, and Kyle wanted the last name. So it all worked out in the best interest, and who would have known that Mike would have been the one to pass, and not me. It's just
November 1st of 1997 is the day that has forever changed your life, and that was the day of the horrific accident on Route 20 out by the Auburn Mall, right? Coming home from a trip to the mall.
Yes, we were coming home. We were the Oxford Charlton Town Line.
Can you take us back to that day, Lisa?
Yes, we just got done shopping. We were doing some Christmas shopping. Mike was gone for 2 weeks, and we wanted to have some family time. The night before, we just had Halloween, and it was so nice. And now it was like, okay, let's go shopping and do some Christmas shopping. So Kyle was dying for some rollerblades, and Kyle was so athletic. This kid played every sport imaginable. There was no saying no to him. And these rollerblades he just so wanted. And I remember being in the Auburn Mall, and Kyle found those rollerblades, and he went and asked his father if he could have them. And his father looked at me, and I looked at him. It's like, I was thinking, Christmas, Christmas, and he was like, no, let's let him have them now. And he bought Kyle those rollerblades, and Kyle was so happy. And when we left the Auburn Mall, Kyle just had him on his lap, and he was so excited just to get home to try him on. Even though it was pouring out, raining, he didn't care. As soon as he got home, he said he was trying those rollerblades in the yard. But little did we know we would never make it home. We were coming around the corner. Like I said, it was torrential downpours on and off, and when we were coming around that corner, all we could see is 2 headlights coming right at us, and it was a truck. And there was nothing we could do. My arms went straight out. My husband's arms went straight up. His last words were, "Oh my God," crash. So now Kyle is fighting for his life. He's 2 to 3 breaths a minute at the scene of the accident. He had 2 strokes, 5 cranial bleeds, subdural hematoma. He was just, they had no hopes for survival for him. My 2 little girls.
And they were under the age of 5. They're 5, 3 and 5.
They were 3 and 5.
3 and 5, and they were actually sitting in the street after this accident.
They were
picture
actually
of the accident's
taken out
horrific.
of the car by the back window because we were hit by another vehicle afterwards.
Oh, you were? Yeah.
Yes, and they were actually taken out of the vehicle and put into someone's car, and then they were transported into the ambulance and then gone to another hospital. But Katie, she was very injured, Katie. She was in a full body cast for 2 months, Katie. And Kimberly was more stomach upset, and she could no longer speak. Everything that came out of her was a total stutter.
The emotional reaction that she had to this horrific accident, and now you're in a hospital. You were transported to a different hospital.
Yes, they brought me to St. V's and the man who hit us.
And you didn't know early on what was happening with your husband or children, right? And so I know in the book you describe it in great detail, but there is that moment when you've got to come to terms with the fact that you have to tell the children that they've lost their dad and that their brother is fighting for his life.
Yes, and will never be the same. Yeah.
What was that like for you, Lisa?
After the doctor told me all my injuries and making decisions whether now we got to go see the kids.
Right.
Went to see Kyle first. Looked totally different. His head was shaved, machines were keeping him alive. His face was a little swollen. It was like, my God, my kid was just in the car so happy, couldn't wait to get home. And now he was laying there in a coma. And not his own coma, it was his own coma, fighting for his life, telling me he may never overcome this. And if he did, he would be in a vegetation state and may never know who I am. That alone was so much to take in, just realizing that I just lost my husband. Now, going to see my 2 little girls. They put us in one big hospital room. They cleaned out. It was a storage area, which was so nice of UMass to do this for us. To keep us together, real close to where Kyle was. And when I ever was wheeled into that room, those 2 little girls, Katie was in a crib. She was put into a body cast. She was just screaming in pain. Her pain was so awful because she really hurt her hip, her femur. Kimberly was, like I said, just vomiting and crying and couldn't speak. Everything that was trying to come out of her was just a stutter. And the room was so packed with people. And I recall at that time saying, I need everybody to leave. I needed to be alone with my 2 little girls. And that's what I wanted to hold them.
You think about what it takes as a mom, knowing that you have to hold this family together.
Oh,
and all your grief,
Yeah.
everything you're going through. You said, I've got to hold this. I've got to save all of them.
Yeah, I wanted to hold them so bad.
Yeah.
But I was so injured, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was, Katie was in a crib. I only could hold her 2 little fingers through the rails of the crib. Kimberly, they brought over to me, so I got to try to hold her as little as I can because I was in cast. I was so injured. And they're asking me, where's Daddy? Where's Kyle? Trying to explain to them, how do you explain to a 3- and 5-year-old that Daddy is never coming back? Kyle is fighting for his life. But I had to.
Yeah.
In the best way that I could. So that is what I did.
And I'm so appreciative for you telling this story, because I think it's important that we don't gloss over this very real human toll of someone's decision to get behind the wheel drunk and impaired by drugs. It's important that we know these types of details on a whole number of levels.
So the driver of this vehicle was
intoxicated and on cocaine.
Wow.
Yep.
Yes.
And I think another remarkable thing about Lisa is that anger doesn't define who she is. Right. That she chose to dedicate herself to her family, and she realized early on, and it says so in the book, that being angry would have gotten in her way, not only to raise Kyle, and but also importantly to show the kids how to react to life's struggles, because they're going to have more struggles.
That's the first thing I was thinking of is the role model that you became, to say how are we going to deal with this? Not bitter, angry. We're going on with our lives, and we're going to build a life together, and we're going to remember the honor, of our dad, right? And we're going to live lives to all those things that. Yeah.
That's all I could think of is making their father proud, and to not let his death destroy all of us, because that's not what he would have wanted.
That's exactly right.
He loved his children so much. He wanted them to have a good life, go to college, become something, make a difference in society. And that was my goal, to make sure that they have.
Happily, you have a wonderful family.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Kyle is an amazing, amazing guy. We're going to get a lot more into Kyle, but you also have two daughters and a stepdaughter. One is a physician's assistant, and one of your daughters. The other one's a nurse.
2 nurses,
and your stepdaughter's a nurse as well.
Yeah.
So you, and looking at their pictures and listening to you talk about them, you certainly have a great family.
Oh, yes. I'm very blessed in that way, for sure.
Faith was important to you, is important to you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And you had worked on your spiritual life a lot prior to this accident, based on what I read in the book.
Oh, yeah. Mike and I, we used to go to church all the time back then, even though the kids were so little. But then after the crash happened, my life just took a total turn. In hospitals for 11 months. I mean, I only seen my girls on weekends. It was very difficult. Then Kyle in a coma for a full year before he came out of it. 28.
For a full year.
A full year. Yeah, he came home in a coma. I had to do an addition to my home. Otherwise, he would have went to the Cape and gone into a nursing home. But obviously, I wasn't going to do that. I was still so injured because my arm was still not at full capacity. I will always have problems with it. I'm not supposed to lift more than 10 pounds. I always have to be careful for everything I do, because I do have a lot of injuries.
Right, right. You've taken this story of tragedy and loss and not only managed to turn it into a story of triumph with your family, but now you're trying to help other people.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in the area of prevention?
Yes, it was about 5 years ago, well actually 6 years ago, I decided to write a book. I was always asked to write one, but I could never do it, never sit down to actually do it. I tried, but I just couldn't get past the accident.
That's right, yeah.
And then one day I was in CVS and someone asked me, "Did you ever write that book?" And so I just said, "No, I didn't." And that's when I got encouraged to write the book. I said, "Lisa, you need to do this." So I promised them that I would do it. And I actually went home that night and I purchased the program, Bird, to start writing, and I know nothing about writing a book. I still don't consider myself a writer. I know nothing about writing a book. And I just said, okay, start with the accident, being hit. If I can get past that, I can write this book.
Right.
So that's what I did. And I wrote it, and I ended up doing it in 5.5 months. And I got it all done, but boy, did I cry.
Of course you did.
Every single chapter, I cried and cried.
Yeah.
And now the book is complete. Now I am so afraid for one person to read this book because nobody has read it, not one person. The publisher got it, and when they got it back, they just said, wow. what an amazing story and how this is going to help people. And they didn't really even edit it. And I'm
That's
like,
pretty amazing, you know. Yeah.
I was shocked because I'm like, oh my God, did I hire the right people? You know, so I was a little worried because, like I said, nobody read it. So now I order all my books and my books come in, and now I have my first book signing at my house. I couldn't believe all the people that showed up at my house to purchase a book.
That's great.
There must have been 100 books sold that one day. And then I was like, wow. You know, and now people start reading it, and now the feedback is coming back, how it is touching people. And I'm in shock because people liked what I read. They understood what I was saying, but it's all from the heart. Now it's becoming even more because now the feedback that is coming, now schools are approaching me around our area. And I kept saying, I'm not a presenter, I'm not even a writer. How am I going to go talk in front of people? And because the first school was a Charlton Middle School.
Sure.
And I went and did that for the first time. And I have to say, I knew nothing what I was doing, but it was amazing.
Tell me, as a former middle school principal, what the reaction was when you and Kyle were there.
There's a lot of crying.
Yeah?
A lot of crying when we go to schools.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
By the children?
Oh, yeah. Even high schools.
We absolutely underestimate
Right, honey?
how much kids feel and how empathic they are. And,
yeah, I think ninth grade, 8th grade, it's devastating, our story. 9th and 10th grade, yeah, you're still going to get a lot of crying. The 11th and 12th are a little bit more stronger, but it all depends on what their lives are like at home. Because I'm noticing that our story is hitting so many different paths of life. Like people that, like my husband was killed. And now people are looking at, oh my God, my father drinks a lot, or my uncle. What if this happens to them? How would I handle this? I want to save them before this happens.
Right.
Or I can have a young girl that just totally shocked me. She tried to kill herself. And she approached me and she just broke down saying thank you to me. And I'm like, oh my God. And she was crying so much. And I'm just hugging her. And I'm like, talk to me, because I knew there was something more to it. And that's when she told me that she tried to kill herself, and how we opened her eyes to how important family is, and how hard it is to move on and have acceptance of it all. And she really thought that her family would not be able to do this.
You know, Lisa, you're bringing up so many good points, and I think the thing about this book is it's not just about a drunk driving accident. It's about resilience, about courage, about faith, and it's about
any journey you may be on.
Any journey, right? So you mentioned this young lady. I'm sure she was moved because you're willing to talk about it. It's okay to talk about grief. It's okay to shed tears. It's okay to tackle these tough subjects, and I think that that's why you're getting such a reaction. When I read the book, it was as if you were in my living room talking. It's a very easy but difficult read, if that makes sense, emotionally.
It's emotionally.
Right, but you said from the heart, and it's definitely from the heart.
Yes.
One of the things you've trained your children really well on, and having gotten to know Kyle, I want people to know Kyle is an athlete. He is right now training for an Ironman. And can you remind me who Kyle's partner is?
Mike DiDonato.
Mike DiDonato. I had trouble with his last name.
Yes.
Mike built the Hoyt's chairs. People might be familiar with the dad and son, that dad has pushed his son for years in the marathons. And just coincidentally ran into Lisa at a bicycle shop, didn't know them, overheard her talking to somebody about Kyle, and 5 or so years later, he's pushed them in a ton of races, and they're building up to their Ironman in Maryland.
Yes.
Kyle's also an artist.
Yes, he is.
I saw some of his paintings online. Yes.
He's got a
discovered
wicked
that
sense
in
of humor.
March.
A wicked sense of humor. He told us a joke on the way in. I'm curious, Kyle, I asked Kyle some questions, and he has the ability to speak through his iPad, and one of the questions I had was what message he would have, Kyle. What message would you have for kids, high school kids, middle-aged kids?
I would tell the students to be thankful that they can walk, talk, and play sports. Life is precious. Don't drive impaired in any way.
I mean, you know, Kyle, that message, as I mentioned to Kyle, I don't know whether he puts this on his resume, but teacher should be the other part that you have in a whole variety of areas. The area of prevention, if one person sees this and decides not to drink a beer and drive, not to do drugs and drive, you're saving more people than you can count.
And that I know he has, because of the responses we get from people, especially our DUI class. That one is very powerful.
So
Yeah.
are there people that are assigned by the courts that have to come
Yes,
to?
they have to go to our class before they obtain their license back.
Tell us about that reaction when you go there, especially for those people that.
Yeah, there's probably about 75 that are in that class, and I want to say maybe 75% are men that are in it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, they come in and that's the last place they want to be.
Yeah.
They do not want to be listening to a story now. But I have to say, throughout the whole thing, we really have their attention, and we touch their heart at the end. And even at halftime, because it's like it's a 2-hour presentation. And after I talked for maybe 20 minutes, and now they've seen a movie which is 35 minutes, now they get a break. During that break, they are coming to Kyle saying, "Thank you so much for coming in.
I wondered about,
I don't know how you do what you do. I'm just so inspired. You really opened my eyes." And then after the break, we go back and we talk more, and now we're giving them some really important messages of how we survive life and survivor's guilt, and not to use your car as a weapon. And you know, we talk about the legal system and meeting the man who hit us. There's so much we discuss. But we really open the eyes to what it can cause. Kyle is in front of you. They see how we take care of him using lifts. He can no longer get up and go to the bathroom and do everything he needs. And they just really leave there so inspired. And they know how he lives. You know, that he's happy. He's not there just sulking like my life is over. He is a go-getter. He is a fighter. He livens up when he knows it's his turn to tell stories on how he gets in trouble. And people think he's so innocent. This kid should get in trouble. Well, believe me, he is so far from innocent. The stories are just amazing.
Yeah, truth be told, Kyle was showing me his iPad, and he's got some pictures of some young ladies that are prominently displayed on that iPad that he's met around his social circles.
Yeah. And,
right?
People are shocked on how he gets in trouble and the things that he has done going to Mass Hospital School, and how he has embarrassed me through the years. And they see that, boy, you know, he's not that innocent devil. Just because someone's in a wheelchair doesn't mean that they're innocent and they don't live. Yeah. And then when they see how strong he is, oh my God, he's so strong.
That's the message I took away from Kyle, and is how he has not let this destroy him. He's got developing all these skills, the art, the athletics. You know.
I created a monster.
Yeah, you did.
I really did. I mean, when this all happened, you got to remember Kyle was in a coma. This kid screamed in pain for years. Wow. And I'm talking screaming. He's had so many spasms that it's taken his whole entire body. And he just was like, I can't go out. I don't want to go out. I'm in too much pain. And I was like, no. There's more to life than sitting in a hospital bed in home. You got to get out of this room. And believe me, it was so hard because I was still so injured. And I'd go out with, at that time, my kids were 4 and 6. Kyle's coming out of his coma, you know, and I'm taking him out. And boy, was it hard. Yeah. But my kids were the biggest helpers. I would be in restaurants. I would be in movies. We would have to leave because he was in so much pain. Sure. But those girls never complained.
Yeah. Boy, that's pretty amazing, isn't it?
But not letting him give up was the best thing that I could have did. Was show him that there is still life. Yeah. And then it was becoming more and more. I mean, this kid has what do you call it? Parachuting, the skydiving, not skydiving.
Bungee? No.
When you fly in the air.
Hang gliding, or?
Kyle, what do you call it? When they take you off the boat and you're in
parasailing.
Yes. He's parasailed twice. He's run on.
I haven't done that. Have you?
No, but he's been to Disney 5 times, and he doesn't shy away from the death-defying rides either.
He's went on all those roller coaster rides, and this kid lives. He does everything.
But you know what I think the most important thing is? I think that he's a Patriots fan.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to win on Sunday.
Oh, yes.
Kyle,
yes.
we going with a win on Sunday, Kyle?
Yes, we are.
You know, Ann and I work on the Franklin Public Schools, collaborate on the Franklin Public Schools Substance Abuse Task Force. And we talk a lot, and Ann has brought to my attention, having been an educator her whole life, the social emotional health of our young people is really where we need to focus. I get the same reaction from my wife. So
That's terrible.
I really do. Truth be told, since we're all telling the truth. But to me, Ann, this example, and I'd be curious as to Ann's response, is just there are so many, other than just the drunk driving and the prevention, which is obviously the main thrust of what you're talking about. There's just so many lessons on so many levels about creating resilient kids.
That's right. And I think one of the things, too, we see that so many young people who grow up in homes where there is alcohol or substance use are so much more inclined, that the tendency is that they will, in fact, also develop some kind of issue. There's a sort of a link there, and to educate them at an early age.
Yes.
If this is in your family, then you have to be particularly careful about your own life and when you use substances, because there's that genetic component.
Oh, yes.
Very much so. So that's a piece of the education in addition to that. And then we talk all the time about how people use substances to self-medicate and to heal pain, and so we're trying to deal with that whole issue as well.
And I think that's the worst route you can go.
Right.
You know, because like I had to decide at an early stage not to take
Opioids, right?
the opioids.
I bet they were, yeah.
And I was so glad that the doctor said that to me, told me what it could lead to, because if he didn't, I wouldn't have known any better.
So you were lucky that you had a physician who warned you about
Yes.
Wow.
Back then,
Yeah,
21 years
I'm saying
ago.
that was before that was even, right?
But did I suffer in pain? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did I had to retrain? I had to, luckily I have a high tolerance for pain, but boy, when I had to go with therapy, I was in therapy 4 times a week for all my injuries, and especially my arm was totally shattered. I got 21 screws and 2 plates. My thumb was off. I had to regain all use of my arm, never mind all my neck injuries, my back, my left side.
Well, taking care of your entire family.
Right.
And
Trying, yeah.
holding it all.
But
you know,
obviously I had to have help. I
Right, yeah.
can't do this alone.
Reading this book, Lisa, with the scenes of you gathering, like we mentioned before, the scene of letting the kids know, I don't know how you would have done, well, I do. If you'd been clouded and fogged over,
I wouldn't have made it.
you wouldn't have been able to show up the way you needed to show up for your
Yeah.
family, which speaks volumes for the person that you are. But it's just amazing to me. So you, on a whole bunch of levels, it was so, you're so grateful that you had a doctor that actually explained to you the dangers and what might happen to you taking the
that's
opioids.
such an important
Even
point.
though if anyone needed a painkiller, you did.
Oh my God, yes.
Right.
And to make all those life and death decisions, I mean, Kyle was always dying on me. I mean, it was so many surgeries. And then I can't even tell you what it's like being 30 years old. I'm a quiet girl now. I don't know how to speak up yet. I had my kids, but I never really had a reason to really speak up. And if somebody had to speak up, it was my husband who spoke up. So I'm in a room with all these doctors, and they're just showing me Kyle's brain and how bad it is, and telling me he needs feeding tubes, he needs trachs, he needs this. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. And they're looking at me like, she's in denial. And it's like, I made that promise to my husband when we were burying him. I spent a lot of time with him before anyone else seen him that day. And I asked him to give me the strength and the courage that I needed to be able to make all the life and death decisions and the decisions for our children growing up. And I told him that I would always follow my gut, not my heart. And I asked him to lead me from up above.
And he has.
And he has.
Yeah.
In every single surgery, everything that I have done, he has led me in the correct decision.
Yeah.
And I have been so lucky that every decision I have made has been the correct one for Kyle, which fooled all the doctors, because how could he not need a trach?
Right.
How could he not need a feeding tube?
And you did it. You had that strength to say, nope.
No, because those are the normal protocols they do with people that are in comas.
Right. Yeah. And you also, you had some remarkable moments. You had a discussion with your husband about death prior to his passing.
Yes, yes. He had a premonition he was going to die, and I had a dream that 2 people died, and I thought it was, because it was when he was gone, so obviously my dream would have been my father and my husband. Little did I know the accident was going to happen the day after he comes home. He arrived home on Halloween. That night we went trick-or-treating. He got killed the next day.
Right. Mike had faith in you. He knew how strong you were, and he told you that.
Oh, yes, yes, I know.
I had a question. It sounded, I thought the driver of the vehicle died, did not.
No, he just broke a leg.
And then you subsequently had a conversation. You met with the driver, or?
I just seen him last year.
Yeah.
He's released, he's out of prison now because he served 2 prison terms. And I ran into him at a CVS in Charlton. Oh. Yes, and I talked to him for about an hour.
Really?
Yeah, I call it his therapy session.
Wow.
It did nothing for me.
Yeah.
But I feel that I helped him.
Yeah. You know, remarkably, this person was it 3 to 5 years the first time around?
Yes.
Prison time.
When you plead guilty, the sentence.
He pled guilty.
Totally,
then he reoffended in.
Oh.
And the girls' first response and Lisa's, when they found out that he'd reoffended, was, did he hurt anybody?
Yes.
That was their first thing. And then they had to go back to court. And I think one of the powerful things about this book is that Lisa takes you through this family struggle, not just for the first year, not just for the second year, but year after year after year. And here's my point, Ann. I think sometimes adults and kids in this Facebook generation, they see thoughts and prayers and, you know, well-intentioned thoughts that people put on Facebook, and then you stop thinking about that person. You have no idea the consequences that a bad decision of breaking the law, driving impaired, or texting while driving, or anything else that we do, and sometimes we just think, oh, you know, it hasn't happened to me, it hasn't happened to my friends, it'll never happen. Well, guess what? It does. And when it does, this is a lifetime of pain, of grieving,
of
loss, and not to mention the financial burdens that you had.
That will never change.
And people forget that this has ripple effects that you can't imagine. You're the victims of a crime.
Yeah.
And
when you are paralyzed like Kyle or in a chair, a lot of your medical is covered with surgeries and stuff like that. And you are allowed a wheelchair every 6 years. But therapy, after the age of 22, you're allowed, like Kyle gets Botox every 13 weeks, he's sedated, and he gets 30 to 50 needles of Botox. Okay, he's supposed to have therapy every single day. He needs to be stretched and all that. Mass Health will only pay for 12 visits a year.
It's ridiculous.
It is, but a lot of people don't know those things. You know, so that's impossible. He can't go to get a normal PT working with Kyle, even though his body needs it more than anybody. He's totally paralyzed.
The chair, with the elevating chair, that wouldn't cover that. And
no,
you were
they
saying,
don't pay for that. I pay for that.
Where's the dignity when you're trying to get up to eye level to speak to somebody?
Yeah, and he has a left side neglect. His neck goes down, and he has seizures, so that's a strain on the eye, but it's not a necessity. Just like a vehicle is not a necessity. Kyle's vehicles cost me $50,000, and I have to buy one, say, every 10 years or so.
Right.
Then that's not a need. It's not a necessity.
So there is no magic to this. This is the real life. It doesn't just take care of itself, and people don't get justice.
We got a burden financially for life.
Right.
And it's not Kyle's fault, you know, but we got to deal with it, and we do it.
You're remarkable people. Your entire family. Kyle, you're a remarkable guy. And I wanted to, maybe if he's up for it, take the Kyle challenge. I do want people that are watching to please gather around your television, because I have never lost in 58 years. Maybe when I was an infant, I lost one round of arm wrestling. And I happen to have known that Kyle considers himself to be a decent arm wrestler. He's going to learn his lesson today, because I'm going to take him down. Now, am I messing up my mic when I do this? Okay. All right. So this is the Kyle.Brodeur challenge.
And I'm gonna. Do you want to be off your tilt?
You're going to owe me a poo-poo platter for 2, because I know he likes Chinese food.
Oh, who doesn't?
Oh, he likes the girls.
Oh, the girls at the Chinese. Oh, come
All
on,
about
man.
the girls.
All right.
Not so much the
So you
food,
ready?
it's the girls.
You sure you're ready?
Okay.
Okay.
So now what you have to do.
Yep.
See, this chair don't rise, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What you have to do is put a little effort into it, because
Yeah.
he won't even try.
A little effort. I don't want to hurt you.
And you won't even know. I can tell you when he's trying because his chair rocks.
Does she have to say go?
He's not trying until his chair rocks,
Okay.
just so you know.
Oh, my God.
Just take him down, Ken. Just take him down.
That's the first time I've lost.
I wish you could see his face. I know, that was
Did I turn red?
You did.
That hurt, dude. I happen to have seen, if you go on Lisa.Brodeur's Facebook page, you're going to see a link to some videos, and he will arm wrestle kids in your school system. And let me tell you something, you should hear the high school kids cheering on their jock friends trying to beat him. They all think, his kid can't win.
Right.
Let me tell you something. I got to go to therapy now.
He shocked you, huh?
But it's a great example of literally
that's
differently
funny.
abled. I used to think that was a PC term. It's not.
Not at all.
Because you'll take anybody down.
He is. He's.
I saw
what
him
do
on
you
the
call it?
video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are shocked, and the students are really shocked, and adults, and a lot of adults are afraid. They're like, I'm not being beat
You
by a
had fear
kid
in
in a
your face,
It hurt. It hurt. Kyle's like, look, this is a picnic for me. You try an 18-year-old football player.
Oh, that was good, Kyle. Good
was
job.
good.
And his chair didn't rock, you know.
He didn't?
No.
Oh, great. Thanks. You could have tell me something that makes me feel better. I want to just remind everyone, this is a terrific book, A Mother's Journey. It's by Lisa.Brodeur, B-R-O-D-E-U-R. And Lisa, where can people reach you?
They can email me, Lisa, Lisa, another A, B-R-O-D @charter.net. Or you can go to Lisa.Brodeur.com site or Facebook.
Facebook, A Mother's Journey.
A Mother's Journey or Lisa.Brodeur.
Right.
And
then-
you're able to do more school presentations down the
Oh
line?
yes, we're
Okay,
being
because I
booked
was
now
thinking-
for especially for the June,
Excellent,
for the
because I
prom
was
time.
thinking through the substance, we should
Task Force,
make sure we get that
absolutely.
information out. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you see this program and you want to contact Lisa, you have the contact information. I highly recommend Lisa and Kyle come out to your school and spend some time with your students and faculty. You really won't be disappointed. Thank you again.
Well, thank you for having
Thank
us.
you. This was great.
Thanks,
Thank
Kyle. I'll recover someday. I want to remind everybody, the SAFE Coalition stands ready to help should you or a family member be struggling with substance use disorder or need support of any type. We can be reached at 508-488-8105. We're on the internet at safecoalitionma.org. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So, for our guests, Lisa.Brodeur, Kyle.Brodeur, and my co-host, Ann Bergen, I'm Jim Derrick saying thanks for watching.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.